Well, as the popular saying goes, man proposes, God disposes, Geoffrey. I was scheduled to be in Akure, but my flight was cancelled, and here I'm following the proceedings from afar. But be that as it may, this is an issue I weighed in on in my column in the Punch newspaper this Wednesday, where I tried to do some analysis of what to expect this day in Ondo State. Ondo presents a very peculiar situation. It's a political war of two deputies in Ondo today. All the researches I've read, all the findings, all the surveys I've read points to a two-horse race in Ondo today. That's the candidate of APC and PDP, even though there are 18 candidates. But something worries me, Geoffrey and Bukola, something worries me. Did you know that it was only yesterday that Labour Party as its bona fide candidate, the authentic candidate for Labour Party, was only determined yesterday? And that is Festus Olanrewaju. Hitherto Olushola Ebisheni have been the one campaigning. And you ask yourself, for this election, that the notice of election was issued over 1 year ago, why should it happen that the candidate will not be determined until the eve of the election? Another worrying thing I saw in the lead up to this election was three political party, three candidates out of the 18 jumping ship and going into alliance with the All Progressive Congress. That's the candidate of NRF, National Rescue Movement, the candidate of Accord Party, and the candidate of NDC. Just yesterday, news filtered that they have dissolved their own campaign organization into that of the APC. And you ask yourself, the law says you cannot withdraw from the race once it's 90 days to election. It used to be 45 days under the 2010 Electoral Act. But now it is 90 days to election. You cannot withdraw from the race. Why are these political parties behaving this way and giving credence to the fact that election is just about inducement, about making monies for themselves and for their parties? Because we saw this also happen in Edo State, where 5 political parties also dissolved their own campaign organization into APC, barely 5 days to the election. So I think the media needs to beam their searchlight on why this continue to happen. Why would the judiciary not determine who the candidate of a party is until the eve of the election? I am quite aware that INEC is acting on the basis of the Court of Appeal decision on who is the authentic candidate of Labour Party. But it was only yesterday that INEC decided to upload and made the correction about who is the authentic candidate of Labour Party in Ondo State. And that is on the side of the political parties. Now, I'm happy with the start of the poll as Sheon, Cynthia, and Ezewa have made us to realize that at least at that Ijomu registration area center, RAC center, some polls have opened even before an hour to the commencement of voting. And that is quite commendable. We do hope that this will be the scenario across all the 18 local governments. Because what we saw in Edo on September 21 was that only 14% of all the total number of polling units in Edo opened an hour to the time that the voters will be accredited. And the standard operating procedure is that you are supposed, as poll officials, you are supposed to be at your polling station an hour to the commencement of poll, so that you can take care of all the preparations, setting aside, pasting the voters register for easy identification by the voters, making sure that the beavers works, looking for the furniture to make it convenient for you to conduct your exercise. But we do hope that this, what we have seen at this particular RAC center in Ondo will cut across all the 3,339 polling units in Ondo State. So I'm quite optimistic that all shall go well in Ondo, but again, cautious optimism. Situations where you are deploying a commissioner per local government. I hope later this evening we will not be hearing that collation could not take place at the designated places because of violence. If you have someone of the stature of Commissioner of Police manning each of the local government, I hope to see the value in that kind of heavy deployment, because what we saw again comparing Ondo to Edo is that in a couple of local governments, we were told that collation could not take place at the ward level and at the local government, in some of the local government, because of threats to peace and violence. And that's what happens when Oredo and Ikpoboka collation allegedly could not take place at the designated places later that evening because that there was threat of violence. So if you are having heavy deployment of the caliber of Commissioner of Police manning each of the local government, I do hope that they will spare resources, human resources, to ensure that both the ward collation center and the local government collation center, as well as the state collation center, are well policed to the extent that all the collation officials and party agents will have the confidence to approach that collation center, do their business, and move to the next level of collation. Because as you and Bukola has rightly pointed out, the weakest link in our electoral value chain is the collation. That is the weakest link. And I have the very rare opportunity to speak to the INEC chairman on October 31 here in Abuja, when we had the last quarterly meeting with civil society, where I said every INEC officials, whether they are poll or ad hoc staff or permanent, must be made answerable for their act of indiscretion or infraction, because you cannot continue to condone situations where illegalities happen in the course of conducting this election with the humongous resources that are deployed to conducting elections, and then there will be no consequences for those who fail to deliver on their assigned responsibilities. And my other point I need to flag is how inclusive will this election be, particularly for persons with disabilities, the women, and the youth. These are the marginalized and vulnerable groups, and we need to factor them. I know INEC do have provisions for magnifying glasses for persons with albinism, and there is supposed to be priority voting for pregnant women, nursing mothers, the aged, and I do hope this will be strictly adhered to, that there will be priority voting for persons with disabilities, there will be priority voting for pregnant women, there will be priority voting for nursing mothers and the aged, so that this whole exercise will be perceived and seen to be inclusive, not just for the able-bodied, quote and unquote, while the vulnerable ones are left to their fate. Because I've also observed quite a number of elections where this is not adhered to, where the deaf, the people on crutches, on wheelchair, could not fully participate in the process because they were not accorded priority voting. So these are my initial concerns I think I need to flag. Thank you.
That was quite all-encompassing. But let's follow up on those highlights that you identified as far as results management is concerned, which has been the crux of the conversation, even stemming from what transpired in the Edo governorship election that has just been concluded and determined. We gather that about this election, National Assembly members are in Ondo State for oversight functions and possibly with a view to commencing electoral reforms. So what are those? Should we be optimistic about their presence in Ondo State for oversight functions with a view to instituting electoral reforms? And what would be your proposition for those reforms, even from courts determining candidacy just 2 days to election and on to a results management process?
Thank you, Bukola. You see, none so deaf as those who will not hear. It's not as if the National Assembly members do not know where the shoe pinches when it comes to issue of election. But you see, the status quo benefits these people. And that's why they have not given us a far-reaching electoral reform that will cure all the maladies and the maladies that we have in the electoral process. Well, their presence is going to be tolerated if they claim that they are on oversight during the electoral process. So be it. I know a number of governors are also on ground, and this is why INEC has continually flagged off-cycle governorship election that it's always very difficult for them, much more difficult for them to conduct off-cycle governorship election than to conduct general elections. Because when you are having off-cycle governorship election, you have the big shots, the political heavyweights would descend on the state. Imagine governors of different political parties being in that state, the National Assembly members, the House of Reps members, wanting to show solidarity for their parties to make sure that they carry the day. And that could also be very tricky. But be that as it may, it's a welcome development if they feel that being on ground in Ondo State will afford them opportunity to see firsthand some of the challenges with electoral process. But I am just saying that they know what the issues are. They have received memoranda from civil society, from members of the public, and if only as active participants, as people who have also been involved in the election, because you cannot be in National Assembly without going through the electoral process, without being sponsored by political parties, since we do not have provision for independent candidates. So they already have that privileged information about what they went through to get to be elected, and they have also, to the best of my knowledge, been receiving memoranda from the public, so they have sufficient literature to peruse to know what needs to be done. But you see, it is still the same political class that uses the information they have to undermine the process. For instance, INEC had continually said, if you are coming to vote, don't come with your aides, don't come with your lieutenants. But you see this big shot flouting this provision. And then the issue of vote buying, which I need to flag, which also I raised in my article on Wednesday, who perpetrates this vote buying? It's still the same political class. Would they claim ignorance that they do not buy votes? I mean, the members of the National Assembly who are in Akure, who are in Ondo State to observe the election, are they going to look at Nigerians in the face and say, oh, we are not involved in vote buying and we don't know that vote buying exists? They cannot tell us that because they are active participants. Many of them bought their seat. They induced voters to get to where they did. And there are sufficient literatures, pre-election reports issued by different civil society organizations to the fact that some dominant political parties in Ondo State are willing to pay as much as 20,000 naira for a vote. I mean, that report was in the Punch of 12th of November, that they are ready to spend as much as 20,000 to buy a vote. And it is a notorious fact that Ondo State has Ondo State has contributed something called Diboko Sebe into the political lexicon of Nigeria. Diboko Sebe meaning vote and cook soup. Vote and cook soup. It is Ondo State that originated that phrase in our political lexicon, just like Ekiti State gave us the phraseology of stomach infrastructure. So it is these same political gladiators that engages in these electoral infractions, which has been criminalized by the Electoral Act, that you cannot and you should not induce voters. You should not give them food. You should not do things to the effect that you are buying their vote, or you are preventing them from from voting because you are inducing them not to also vote. It is also the political class, to the best of my knowledge, that also get involved in electoral violence. They are the ones that mobilize talks. They are the ones that mobilize their loyalists to foment trouble, to ensure that there is no free and peaceful elections, as well as the use of social media to peddle fake news, to peddle misinformation and disinformation. It is the political class. So, Bukola, if you are telling me that members of National Assembly are on oversight duty in Ondo State because they want to gather first-hand information, they can tell that to the ordinary citizens who do not know the whole history of how election works in Nigeria. They need to cure themselves of those maladies first before they will say they want to conduct any genuine oversight. Because all the issues around violence, voter inducement, vote buying, misinformation and disinformation, all of them are traceable to these political gladiators. So if they will behave themselves, look at the litigation arising from their party primaries. The APC have issues with its primary, the PDP has issues with its primary, Labour Party has issues with its primaries. And this is just a primary, this is an election that is intra-party. Yet, look at the litany of litigations that stems from the party primaries that were conducted early this year. That's why you see 2 days to election, Labour Party is just getting the authentic candidate. So how will someone like Festus Olanrewaju now campaign when his fate was only determined on the last day of campaign? So it is the political class that needs to have a conversation with itself and do the right thing by allowing credible elections. Because the day we have an elite consensus that, yes, we want credible, free, fair, and peaceful election, that's the day it will start to happen. It's not about altering electoral law 1,001 times within 10 years that will give us credible election. The political class must have a conversation. They must have a frank conversation with themselves to say, look, we want
very great point you've raised.
Credible elections, and it will happen.